a useful session, I am sure. So I'm here today with Randy Irwin, and his better half is going to join us at some point, Gemma. And we're going to talk about proper property management. Randy, you and I have talked about this before, and you know my views on it, is that people think of property management as if it was breathing, that you just do it naturally. They think about leasing as something that you just do naturally. And, I think I sent you and Gemma the hour and a half of video training that I did with Tristan Pelche on residential leasing.
Yep.
I don't know if you had a chance to look at that training video yet, but the stuff that we're doing in residential leasing and again in commercial leasing as well, it is really actually quite complicated. It shows just how much change you can create for a cap rate when you do proper leasing. And again, leasing, a lot of people think, oh, that's easy. You just say, hey, listen, I've got an apartment. It's $1,500 a month. Sign here. There's a lot more to it. And Tristan Pelche, who's a young realtor I coach, was absolutely fantastic on that training video. And we go through each paragraph of that. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about proper property management. Before I though actually get into it and start a long lecture, so one of the questions I had for you, Randy, is that my hope was that you and Gemma would become the king and queen of property management, leasing, tenant acquisition in the village of Britannia. That's still, I think that's still the goal, correct?
That's yep, correct.
And the other question was, which I was going to ask, will you take on any third-party clients?
Yes.
I think you should, because no matter how young you are, and you're much younger than me, and Gemma's younger than you, you can't really make a meal out of it without having more than say 20 or 30 doors. I mean, you could make some money managing 20 or 30 doors or 50 doors, but you can start to make real money in this business at 100 doors, at 300 doors, and at 600 doors. And I have at least one client who has 600 doors under management, and he has been through this with me as well, and his business makes serious money. But he's at 600 doors, so a little bit bigger than you and Gemma right now. Yep. All right, so we're going to talk about the art of property management, and I have a new term for it. I don't think it's my term. I think I got this term from Nick Cripps and Simon Case, and they called it portfolio management. And I think that's a subtle change, but one of the things I was going to ask you and Gemma to consider is that when you start your property management company, you already have one, you don't call it property management, or you call it property and portfolio management. And do you know kind of the difference of what I'm getting at there?
Yep. We have we deal with portfolio managers with IT projects as well. And there's Gemma online now.
Hey, hi, Gemma.
Hey. Can you guys hear me?
Perfectly.
Yep.
Okay, good. Got my earbuds.
So one of the things that to me, a portfolio management means that I have this idea of a property manager or a portfolio manager as somebody who is providing invaluable services and advice to their clients. Because most property managers, as you know, are really terrible. I'm not just saying that because you're on the call with me. I'm telling you that two of the most difficult questions I get asked in terms of real estate coaching is A, can you recommend a custom home builder? And B, can you recommend a property manager? In the case of the custom home builder, most of these custom home builders are over budget, they're late delivering, and when they do deliver, they have tremendous amount of deficiencies. And most property managers, unfortunately, it's a race to the bottom. So say somebody says, look, I can manage your properties. I'll take 8% of the revenues. I'll do a great job. Somebody else will say, hey, I'll do a great job, and I only charge 6%. Don't hire Randy and Gemma, hire me. I'm 6%. And then somebody else will come along. This is what happens, and says, hey, I'll do it for 4%. So if you rent a $1,000 apartment, and some property manager who's a very budget property manager is charging 4%, that's $40. Now, if they get more than one call a month from that tenant, there's some kind of an issue. Maybe the toilet is blocked, or I don't know, the smoke alarms are defective. if they get more than one call, what happens with property managers is that they get irate with the customer, with the tenant. They do, because they know that for 40 bucks, one visit to the site, answering one call or two calls, your 40 bucks is long since blown, and they want to hurry everybody off the call. So one of the things that I train property managers and portfolio managers to do is not be a race to the bottom. And most of my clients, and you'll see it in the slide deck here, Randy and Gemma, as we go along, are charging much more than the average property manager, but they're doing more than the average property manager. Number one, they treat tenants as if they were customers. And customers pay your bills and my bills. I can tell you every time I get a rent check from one of my tenants, I'm grateful. I am. And I think I told you this story. We have a very nice townhome that we've rented to a Toronto-based couple for 2 years. And they pay about $2,500 a month. And so we've received $60,000 in rent from these nice young people over 2 years. Then the lady of the house calls me and she says, I've got ants in my kitchen. What do I do? And she got a hold of me instead of my property manager, which is my wife. But she got a hold of me, and I said, not to worry. I'll pick up 5 ant traps for $6 at Canadian Tire, and I'll drop them over. And one of my kids asked me, why do you have to do that, Dad? Why can't you just tell her to go get the ant traps for herself? And I said to my daughter, I said, these people have paid us $60,000. This is the first call I've had in 2 years from them, and they're super nice. And I can spend 20 minutes picking up some ant traps, delivering them. It's just simply client relations, and it's just a little bit of, customer relations. And I don't mind doing it. And you showed me, Randy and Gemma, one other business where you could get $60,000 in revenue and have one phone call, and which takes you $5 or $6 and 20 minutes to resolve. So I really want you to think about 2 aspects that make you different in your property management business. Number one, you treat tenants as if they were valued customers, highly valued customers. And number 2, because Randy, especially in your case, and Gemma more recently, I've been teaching you a lot of things about animation. So one of the things I teach the property management companies that I coach is, what if you went to one of your clients and said, Mary, you have 20 doors, and Gemma and I are managing it, or Randy and I are managing, we're managing it for you. It's great. But what if we were to do some augmented tenancies, which you're thinking about doing with one of your triplexes, Randy and Gemma? Or what if we were to just put some storage sheds in the backyard and rent those for you? You'd get a much higher cap rate, or at least a little bit higher cap rate on that, better ROI. So what if, instead of just thinking about how you could do the least amount of work to get the most amount of money, what if you were thinking about how your clients, in this case your landlords, could animate their portfolio so they can make more money? Now, all of a sudden, they say to you, Randy, Gemma, this is great. When you took over our portfolio 2 years ago, we were at a 4.5% or 5% cap rate, and I just checked. It's now 6.5%. Well, that doesn't sound like very much, but Randy and Gemma, you would know that 4% projected over 20 years is this, and 6% is quite a bit more when you get out here to the 20th year. So now, all of a sudden, you have been thinking not about how to make yourselves more successful, but how to make your clients more successful. But wait, it gets better. So now they say, Randy and Gemma, I'm so pleased. Our portfolio is doing better. We're actually making more money. The cost to hire you as property managers is actually a negative cost. When I first started hiring you, and you said you were going to charge 8%, I thought, oh, geez, that's at least 2 points higher than anybody else. But now I see why I think that was a good decision, because the amount of money I pay you compared to the amount of extra money I'm making is so ridiculous that the cost to hire you is negative. So Randy and Gemma, do you understand where I'm coming from on that?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it is the most powerful sales tool I think I've ever invented, and it is one of my inventions. It's called negative cost selling. And one of the things you'll see in the slide deck as we go through it is I would like you guys to create a few case studies. It could be your own case studies, or it could be some of the things that you've done for other people, where you can show that the cost to hire you as property managers or portfolio managers is this much, but the benefits that you create is this much, and the reduction in cost is this much. So the combination of increased benefits and decreased costs, way, this thing is much bigger than this thing. Okay, you guys see where I'm coming from? Yep. That's negative cost selling, and it has to be done with case studies. So one of the things that, this is part of your homework, is I think you should write up a few case studies. If you asked me as a coach, Randy, you were kind enough to say that a little bit of advice I gave you on one project might have saved you $100,000 or made you $100,000. You said that. I was glad to hear that. So if you think about the amount of money I charge as a coach compared to the amount of money that I could save you or make you in terms of the coaching that I do, I really do think that the cost of hiring me as a coach is highly negative, which is good, right? Yep. And that's what I want you guys to be able to do. So Gemma, I want you to really be able to understand what it is, the concepts I'm teaching you, and then be able to use it, because it's very powerful. And I have people in the property management business who've gone from 200 or 300 doors to 600 doors, and it did not take very long. The reason it doesn't take very long is that if you call people who have investment property in the area where you live, in Britannia Village, and you ask them if they're happy with their property manager, almost certainly 90% of them are going to say, I hate my property manager. So it is actually fairly easy to get people to switch, because it's kind of like your cell phone. Not many people like their cell phone companies, AT&T, Verizon, Bell Canada, TELUS, Rogers. And so getting them to switch away is actually fairly easy, because they spend most of their time, as poaching each other's customers, because people are so unhappy. This is also true in property management.
I believe it.
All right. So, but before we get into all the details of property management, I'm going to talk about this guy, Steve Lowell. He's based here in Ottawa, but don't hold that against him. He is absolutely brilliant. And he talks about how to become the one. And I'll explain what that means. And Randy, you've heard me talk about this before. Every business, including your property management business, has to have a magic marketing button, some way to acquire customers and clients, in this case, landlords, in a cost-effective manner. If you told me that the only way you could get new landlord clients to sign up with your property management company is to run a Super Bowl ad, which can cost $5.5 million US for a 30-second commercial, well, your business is dead, right? For most of us, that's just not realistic. So we need to think about, how do we get in touch with clients and how do we capture them cost-effectively? But before we get into all of that detail, let's just talk about this guy, Steve Lowell. He's also a coach. He's really, really smart. And what he says, and I think he's right, is that there are 4 different stages that you can be at with any business. Most businesses in Ottawa, in fact, probably most businesses everywhere, live in the first stage, which is obscurity. They're tiny businesses. They trade on price. They're like the property manager companies that I talked about before. Just making sure that I'm recording this properly. Yes, I am. So most companies live there. And so these are the companies that, don't offer property management at a responsible number. They go not 8%, not 6%, they're down to 4%, and they just are squeaking by. They provide horrible service for everybody, their employees, their customers, their landlords. Everybody's getting terrible service, and they're just basically trading 4 quarters for a dollar. You do not want to live at that stage. Stage 2 is where you become competitive. So you kind of know what you're doing, but you're a little bit better than obscurity, but not a whole lot better. The third level is a level at which you can sustain yourself. You've become a branded company. So you have a good brand, people know your brand, and they think, oh, well, that's a decent company. And you can sort of then survive and make a reasonable living. But what you really want to try and do is become the one. In your case, because you want to dominate Britannia Village, you want to be like my friend Bob Everts. Bob Everts was a realtor back in the 80s and 90s, and he was very active in 2 small communities. the communities of New Edinburgh and Linden Lee. Do you guys know where those are?
Yep.
Yeah. So Bob Everts, that's all he did. If you told him, I have a beautiful house in Canada I'd like to sell, or Barhaven, or anywhere, he'd say, well, I'm not your guy. I'm going to dominate. And he lived in Linden Lee or New Edinburgh, so Bob could actually walk to all of his listings, and it got to the point where he became the one in New Edinburgh and Linden Lee. And if you were selling your house there and you didn't have a Bob Everts sign in front of your house, they said, there must be something wrong with that guy's house. So Bob, just almost by default, mind you, it took him more than a decade of hard work to get there, but that's what I would like you guys to do. I'd like you to be the Bob Everts of Britannia Village. And people say, gee, if we don't use Gemma and Randy, there must be something wrong with our property, because Randy and Gemma represent quality management, animation, high ROI, negative cost in terms of hiring them. All kinds of good things are associated with you guys, and you become the one in your village. It is doable. All right, so let's go to the next slide. All right. What does your brand do for you guys? A brand creates trust, and it creates authority, allows you to attract more clients. The next thing is really important. Premium pricing isn't just so you and Gemma can have a nicer house or a nicer car or anything like that. I mean, that's nice to have as well. But it's also so that you can invest in the very, very best technology. To me, it's amazing that property managers, for example, who have 600 doors, have a room full of keys. Now, how would you like to keep spare copies of 600 keys, Gemma? So
laughing at me.
I'm not going to incriminate Randy.
You're laughing at me. I'm working. I'm changing. I changed 3 of them.
I've been in people's houses where they have mason jars, huge mason jars full of keys. And I asked them, do you actually know what those keys are for? Some of them. But most of them, they don't have any idea. And then when they go in an emergency situation, they bring the mason jar, they throw it on the floor, and they stand there for half an hour trying different keys. This is no joke. Okay, Randy, I got you. So I coach people in property management all across Canada and in the United States as well. And I say, guys, we're going to keypad locks, right? Changeable, programmable keypad locks. I've got them on all of our properties, most of them. And, we can change the code. We can let people in with a special one-time code, all controlled from an app. So the reason you want premium pricing isn't just, like I said, so you can have a nicer car, which is great, and a nicer house and nicer holidays. All of that's good, but it's so you can invest in the best people, the best systems, the best technology. And that's really important. Okay, you guys are clear on that? So Randy, I expect Gemma next year at this time to say, hey, all of our locks are keypad locks. They're all controlled, all the doors, and all of your clients too should convert to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got 6 done already, and I got 4 more in the garage. So
there you go.
Actually, on that, what would you do for a condo?
Well, you'd have to ask the condo corp's permission,
Yeah.
but I think most of the condo corps are prepared to allow you to go to keypad locks. I think they are. But you do, with condo corporations, Gemma, they have more rules than a one has quills. So you have to ask.
We have one now, the other one sold, but yeah, I still have one, which is close by.
Yeah. But I would, there's all kinds of other things that you guys can learn. The neat thing about being a property management company is you can be much more than a property management company, but you'll have to wait for that, Gemma, and I'll get to that a little later. The next point on this slide is to build your network. It's incredibly important for you guys to have a CRM, a customer relationship management system. And it could just be a spreadsheet, where you say, oh, Bruce Firestone, he owns 17 properties in Britannia Village. Here's his telephone number, here's his email address. And you can search Excel with a Control F, right? You can search these things. So it doesn't have to be a really expensive CRM, but if you're going to have 600 doors, you're going to have a proper CRM. If you have 20 doors, you can just have a spreadsheet and you can go Control F and you can probably find everything you need that way. So it doesn't have to be expensive, but as you grow the business, again, you want to invest in the best systems and technology. Building an email list is absolutely crucial. Don't let anybody kid you in terms of the magic marketing button, you know, the button you press and clients appear. Email is still the best solution. A lot of people today have forgotten, Randy and Gemma, how to talk on the phone. Like, I do so much Zoom talking, I hardly even use this thing. It just kind of sits on my desk and looks at me. But people today would rather text you and email you than call you. I learned a term called ghosting. It's how to drop a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife without actually ever having to see them.
Yep.
I didn't know that term. I just learned because one of my kids, they're all millennials, told me about it. So I'm now an expert in ghosting. But you don't even break up with your girlfriend or boyfriend anymore by saying, sorry, this isn't working for me. You just text them. So everywhere you go, try and collect email addresses, all right? And of course, you have to do it legally, but yes, that's an important thing. And the best way to build a moat around your property management business, or for that matter, any other business, is by making your offering, you know, just uncontestable, right? Just irresistible, right? So that's really important. So the best way to build a moat is to provide excellent customer service and to have a highly differentiated offering. Some of the stuff that I've just talked about. Imagine a property manager who could go to his or her client and say, hey, listen, if we put a micro suite in here because you've got a perfect condition for that, we can add another $9,000 or $10,000 a year in revenues to your property. Would you be interested in doing that with a 20 or 30% cap rate? Yes. Well, hardly any property manager can do that because he or she is so busy with their $40 a month puny little stipend, trying to get people off the phone and get rid of them. All right, so enough of that. This is probably one of the most important diagrams in terms of marketing, maybe ever. And I created it. I used to go around and I used to ask marketing agencies for decades, why is marketing important? Why is branding so important? Everybody told me for 30 years, you know, branding is important. But as an engineer, I said, okay, I'll accept that it's important if you can explain to me why. And most of the marketing agencies out there can build you a very pretty website. You know, they can give you a nice logo. They can give you a nice business card. But that's not really marketing and branding. It's just pretty. And that's nice to have, but they can't actually tell you why it's important to have a strong brand. And I've been thinking about this for decades, and finally I figured it out. The reason that a brand is important is that you do marketing to build your brand. That's great. And when you have a brand that's trusted, the trust is the missing link that allows you to create a sale. Because if you ask somebody, anybody, have you ever bought something from someone you didn't like and didn't trust? The answer will be yes, but only once. So if you can create a brand around your property management company that is really trusted, you become an authority, you become the one, or at least one of the ones, then that trust means that the next time you pitch your services to some landlord, he or she will say, oh, I know all about you guys, you're great. So the likelihood of you signing that client is much higher than if you have a bad brand, because you've created an aura of trust. It's trust that allows sales. So marketing builds the brand, brand creates the trust creates the opportunity to sell. Sales produces money for more marketing. All right? That's the missing link. And I'm an engineer, but it took an engineer to figure that out, I guess. I put this in here as a little self-survey, but one of my clients gave me a very nice review. She wrote this to me. Hi, Bruce. I just listened to your interview. I'm impressed. Thank you for doing this. I've been a huge Robert Kiyosaki fan, but I must say I loved your ideas even more. I live in BC, and I'm looking forward to learning more from you, Jill Koster. That was a lovely thing for her to say. But I realized, and it's only fairly recently, that after 7 years of coaching, that I have become, or at least I become one of the ones in real estate investment coaching in North America. I have. And, you know, I just kind of realized that lately. Now, how did I do that? Well, I work about 3,000 hours a year, which is really actually too much for somebody who's my age. And I've been doing this since I retired from the university. So I put in 21,000 hours, Gemma, to become an overnight success. But, you know, these are some of the things I've done and probably some of the things you're going to do. All right. So what did I do? I got myself a coach. Well, you did that too. I put in the hours. I know Randy's not afraid of hard work, and I'm sure Gemma is the same. I have a couple of blogs with more than 100,000 individual readers, which is actually a fairly small number. But if it's the right 100,000 people, who cares? I have a YouTube channel with 250,000 views, and it would be much more, except like this is being recorded. It's going to go on YouTube, but it's going to be unlisted. You'll have the link, I'll have the link, no one else will see it. So I probably have a few million views, but you know, these are private conversations, so I just record them and put them unlisted, but still 250,000 views. I'm quite active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I give any number of free webinars, and I do paid keynote speeches. In terms of finding you guys new clients for your property management company in the village, you will be doing some free webinars. There will be people in your area who own property who will come on and do a free webinar. And Randy and Gemma, if you did a free webinar, you start to talk about some of the animation techniques and some of the case studies that you've done. People go, oh, wow, this is a whole other world. Like in the coaching stuff that I've done, you know, when I started coaching, you know, it was a bit of a grind, you know, to find the first few clients, and you know, but now it's going like this. Now I can't keep up with it, but it wasn't always like that. But once you become the one or one of the ones, and you have a terrific brand, which I think I do now, it becomes really easy, relatively speaking, you know, to find new clients and customers, and people will come to the webinars, and I know, because I know Randy better than you, Gemma, but I know he can do a wonderful presentation, and people will sign up. I mean, if you get 10 people there and each of them say has 7 doors on average, you've got 70 doors, and you probably get half of them to sign up with you because they're not happy with their current property manager. So free webinars, I think, will be an important source of new clients for you. I do some pro bono work. I do hundreds and hundreds of clarity calls. Randy, you and I might have met through one of those clarity calls. I don't remember. I've done. Sorry, go ahead, Randy.
We did. No, sorry, I'm just adjusting my computer so I can see all your stuff. I had our pictures across the bottom. So.
Sorry about that. Then I've got hundreds of case studies. And I said earlier on this call that you should have some case studies that you do. And they don't have to be very long. You know, they could be a page or 2 pages where you say, look, this was the situation when I got the crack house. This is what I did. This is the route I took to profitability. You know, you know, all the stuff that you're doing. I mean, it's a perfect case study. I mean, it's really interesting. And people like that. For me, my personal brand is very down to earth. You know, people in the coaching business that I compete against, many of them are much younger and better looking. And so, you know, yeah, that is a fact, Gemma. I mean, you have to, one of the young coaches out in Winnipeg, you know, he's a nice, handsome young fellow. And he has 4 salespeople who work for him, 3 of the most beautiful young women I've ever seen, and a 4th one who is a very handsome young man, and wonderful, good looking. But the quality of the material they're teaching is absolutely terrible. I can tell you, just absolutely terrible. He teaches people how to flip houses. He charges them $60,000 for the training. And I asked him, how many of the people who you've taught to flip houses after paying $60,000 for your training, how many of them are succeeding? He said, oh, 94% of them fail. I made him repeat that. I said, what? He said, 94% of them fail. And unfortunately, this young man has passed away. So I probably shouldn't say any more, but you know, I wish him well.
I know who you mean.
Yeah, but you know, but the training was absolutely terrible. But you know, they were a pretty nice looking group, I have to say. And so, you know, you have to decide which direction you're going to go in. For me, it just obviously, even as a young man, when I was a little better looking, you know, the flash, it was just not me. It would never suit me. I'm a civil engineer, and which is very down to earth kind of person. So that's my brand. I wrote dozens of books and gave away thousands of copies of them. I was an early adopter of Zoom, which we're doing now. And the next one down here is something I think would work for you. When I first started coaching, how do you get your first coaching clients? Nobody knows what I'm doing. You know, I had a website, but so what? And I called up the Canada North Business Association, right? And I said, how many people are on your email list? And they said, oh, well, we send out 20,000 email newsletters every month. I said, wow, that's great, you know. And Randy, my theory was that a lot of the tech guys like you would be interested in real estate.
Yep.
So I asked them, I said, well, could I, you know, advertise in your newsletter? And they said, what? I said, could I sponsor your newsletter? And they said, well, nobody's ever asked us that before. Well, I'm asking. And so they had to go to their, you know, what it's like when you work for an association, everything has to go before the board, right? So they go before the board. They say, you know, this guy Firestone wants to advertise in our newsletter. Are we going to allow that? And I think the board's, yeah, sure, why not? So I was able to put a, you know, a little blurb in their newsletter saying, you know, my name's Bruce Firestone. I'm a real estate investment and business coach. I'm a Century 21 Explorer Realty broker, and I'm the founder of the Ottawa Centers, which in Canada counts for something. And if you're fed up with your mutual funds and your, you know, your life insurance and your financial planners and you know, all these other stocks and bonds and other investments that you made, and you think like I do, that the only way for you to provide for yourself and your family for 3 generations is by owning some real estate and maybe owning a personal business for life, call me now. I'm available. I'm in the coaching business. And that's how I got my first clients. So you're not allowed to go to the BIA and say, can I have your email list? That's obviously against the law. The Canadian anti-spam legislation would, the CASL legislation would prevent that. But when people email you and say, hey, Bruce, I read about you in the Canada North Business Association newsletter, and I'm a tech guy. And as many of these tech men and women approach 40, they realize that they're going to age out of that business, and they want to do something else, and they like real estate. So that's how I got my first, you know, 20 or 30 clients. And you know, I have a 16,000 person email list, but it didn't start that way, right? Is that clear as mud?
Yep.
So I have to make a confession, Bruce. I worked 10 years in public relations for the federal government and advertising before moving into policy administration for the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, a lot of this stuff you will.
So you're preaching to the converted, for sure.
I realize that. Well, you'll just have to bear with me. I'll try and get through it as fast as I can. I already mentioned this, that if
I always need a refresher. I've been on mat leave for over a year, so.
Thank you. So if you have to spend $5 million on a Super Bowl commercial before you acquire some clients, it's not going to work in almost all startups. Now, here's an example of one of my clients who started a business called Grade A Techs. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, Randy.
No.
So they started out in my class, because, you know, when I was teaching at Carleton University and then at the University of Ottawa, everybody who studied entrepreneurship with me was required to start a business in the 3 months that they studied with me, everyone. So these guys started in my class, and they wanted to do at home or at your place of business computer repair. So they would have student IT guys, workers, men and women, and they'd have clients over here, and they would simply match them, right? So that if you know, your network was down or your computer couldn't print or you had a virus running around, they would send somebody who really knew what he or she was doing to your place of business or to your home at an appointed hour, and they would guarantee to fix it. It was a tremendous success. But they said, how do we find our first new clients? And I said, really, really, really simple stuff. So what they did was they did some lawn signs. So if they came to, I was clients of theirs. If they came to my place, they'd put another, you know, computer problem fixed by Grade A Techs. And even back then, this has got to be 15 years ago, they would, you know, their lawn sign would have a phone number and an email address, because again, a lot of people preferred, even back then, preferred to email as opposed to actually talk to somebody. So you have to have that. And the other property management companies I coach in Canada and the United States, all of them tell me the #1 inbound call is from signage. #1. So you remember how we talked about the quote unquote crack house being a named place, named after your son Alexander House. So you'd have a nice sign saying Alexander House, but you are going to have a sign saying, you know, property managed by blah, 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 you know, with your, so you're going to have your company name there. You're going to have a tagline. You guys remember what a tagline is, right? So you're going to have your company name, you're going to have your tagline, you're going to have your phone number and your email address. And, you know, and tenants will call you, right? They'll say, geez, I need a place, Randy and Gemma. But what's really surprised me, I didn't know this, I've been coaching enough of them now. They tell me that what happens is that prospective landlord clients see these signs all over and they call too. So it's very plain, you know, it's not fancy marketing. It's very cheap, but lawn signs and signs that are, you know, permanent signs that say, you know, another property managed by, tenants apply here, here's a number and an email address, and surprise, surprise, a landlord will be driving by and he is mad as hell at his property manager because there's been a bad tenant, a bad lease, the you know, costs have run away from them, the revenues are not what they said they would be. They're going to call you from those signs. All right.
Yep.
The other stuff that you're going to do is you're going to obviously have a website. That's obviously important. And the other thing that works really well is just flyers delivered in the neighborhood. Hey, if you're thinking about renting your house, call me now. All right. So it's easy stuff. And one of the things I had grade A do, I'm not saying you should do it, but they did because they were students. I think I have them on the next slide. Here are the two lads. This is Alan Gosson on the left and Matt LaFrance on the right. And by the way, this company has over 100 employees and 35 million a year in sales. So it's grown from teensy when it was in my class to quite a bit bigger now. Is one of the things they did was they put grade A signs on telephone poles and street you know, light standards, which is city property. So it's guerrilla marketing. It's not really permitted, but they did it anyway. But I made sure that they took a ladder and they put all of their signs. So they would have a little step ladder or 6-foot step ladder. They put it up and they put it up at, you know, 9 or 10 feet. So the city employees who might be a little lazy, you know, if they were at this height, they would just get out of their trucks and rip them off and put them in. But when they're at 9 or 10 feet, it's a little harder, right? You actually have to have a plan to pull it down. So they were able to put up about 2,000 of these signs over a period of a few weeks, and that got them their first 5,000 clients. Okay. Now it's guerrilla marketing, and eventually the city catches up with you and gives you you know, they got fined $500, but by that time they had 5,000 clients, right? You know, and they did have to pay a fine. All right. So I already said this, property management is a core competency. You know, people often will say to me, hey, Bruce, can you help me find a 100-unit apartment building that makes $100 a door after paying everything, so I can make $10,000 a month? And I want to buy this 100-unit apartment building, no money down, and I don't want to do any work, so it has to have great tenants and no deferred maintenance. Well, that's just not real. That isn't real, because if I found something like that, I think I'd be able to buy that myself. It's no money down, no work, no deferred maintenance. I make $10,000 a month. I'm probably not going to call that person. But that's another kind of real estate training, Gemma, that goes on all the time. And I know when another Rich Dad, Poor Dad conference has hit Ottawa, because I'll get 2 or 3 or 4 of those calls in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And they're all the same. Can you find me a 100-unit apartment building that makes $100 a month, et cetera? That's just not real. Work is required. Property management is a skill and it requires a lot of work. Here's how property managers can rip people off. And you might ask yourself, Gemma, why Bruce is telling us how property managers can rip off their clients. The reason for that is I want you to be fully prepared to answer these questions because you're going to get them. So pretty much every one of these has happened to me. So property managers can tell you you have vacancies when you don't. So let's say I ran a mini storage business and there was maybe 150 clients, and I had a young person managing it for me, a young property manager, and he would constantly tell me, you know, oh yeah, 40 units are vacant, but they weren't. He was simply leasing them for cash. So he was making about $5,000 a month extra and telling me, oh, you know, I'm sorry, the market's not very good. And finally, I got a little suspicious after a couple of months, and I just went out to look at and I walked around the site and I looked at, and I counted all the locks. And about 98 or 96% of the units were rented. You know, they had locks on them that customers had put on them. And he was showing on the books about 70%. Right. So, and they can do the same thing with apartments, right? They can say, oh, you know, sorry, Gemma, sorry, Randy, you know, your 10-plex here, I got four units vacant. I just can't seem to rent them. But he's really pocketing the money. So the other thing that some property managers do is they create phony invoices. So they say there's a plumbing problem. They get one of their buddies who's a plumber to give them a phony invoice for $300 to fix plumbing that didn't need fixing. And if you have a landlord, he or she is paying that, and then you, as a property manager, just split that with the plumber. You know, he gets half and you get the other half, right? So there are a lot of different ways that property managers can, in fact, steal from their clients. And this is going to be something that you're going to have to deal with, and you're going to have to know what are the ways that they can rip people off. So I keep saying, don't choose the cheapest property manager, choose the best. And you, I have no doubt, will be among the best. I want you to be one of the ones. Here's a couple of examples from some of the property managers that I coach. This is a very small example, but it's from BD. The initials are BD. And what Brian said was he was working for a client who had 4 gas meters. One meter does the furnace, and the others do each of the 3 hot water tanks. So he pays 4 different gas bills. Enbridge charges a monthly fee of $20 plus HST per meter. So Brian had, the property manager had a gas technician disconnect 3 of the meters and run all the gas through one. Then he canceled the other 3 accounts. The cost to do this was estimated at $800, but it saved Fred $835 per year. Basically 100% cap rate or ROI, right? And then I got some good news, Brian reports. I got the bill for the work and it was only $640. So I think the ROI was 117%. So the way that you can push cap rates up is through some of the animation stuff that I've been teaching, but also through lowering costs as you get more and more experience doing that. Yep. And one of the things I learned too late in my career, Gemma, was to control costs. I've been a revenue side guy all my life. You know, every business I think I've been involved with, the revenues tend to do this. But I'm not as careful on costs as I should be. And I only learned that fairly late in life. So you have to do both. You have to be good at reducing costs, right? And increasing revenues. And if you can do that the way Brian does, Brian's brilliant at this. And it's a very small example, but saving $800 a year on an $800 investment, that's pretty good. Here's another one. Brian manages a number of properties in Vanya, which can be a little tougher to manage than, say, Britannia, although Britannia has its issues too. And he wrote me, I just rented out a 2-bedroom unit in Beechwood for $1,325, 6% higher than the old rent. How did I get it rented so quickly and 6% more? Now, 6% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think about the average Ontario recommended increase in rent, it's around 1 or 2%. So 6% is like 3 times higher or more. Well, the previous tenants had been there for 4 years. I repainted the entire unit and focused on the outside of the property because the apartment itself has always been a lovely unit. I restained the deck, hung 3 or 4 sets of flower baskets, and redid the walkway pavers, which after 15 years were beginning to separate and lift. So the curb appeal went way up. So most people ignore the curb appeal. If you go past most rental properties, the front yard is like a mess. It's got garbage, it's got weeds, it's got patchy grass. The plants have all died. And you know, the shutters are broken and they haven't been repainted in 15 years. The whole place looks shabby. I mean, Randy, if you went to, say, Harry Rosen, or Gemma, I don't know the dress shops, but if you went to a high-end dress shop and all the dresses, or in Randy's case, all the suits were on the floor, you know, and you had to step on 1 or 2 suits to get to another one. And the sales clerk picks it up and shakes it off or shakes the dress off and gets the dust off and said, you really ought to buy this suit for $5,000, Randy. You ought to buy this evening gown for $3,000, Gemma. you wouldn't be too impressed. So one of the things that people forget about real estate, excuse me, is merchandising. So I want you to think of every building that you own or every building that you manage for other people as if it was a Lamborghini. So do you know that most landlords, most real estate investors spend more time and attention on their dogs than they do on their investment property? Gemma, you're laughing at me, but it is absolutely true. I have landlord clients who have, 30 buildings, and when a tenant calls them, they get mad. Oh, why is he calling me? Damn it. I got to walk Scooby-Dooby-Doo. And I say, wait a second. How much is that building that you own over there? Oh, it's about $600,000. I said, if it was a Lamborghini, would you take it? Would you polish it? Would you maintain it? Because Lamborghinis can be $600,000 or $650,000. Oh, I'd really take care of it. If I had a Lamborghini, I'd maintain that thing. Well, your house is a Lamborghini, and it's a lot better than a Lamborghini because your Lamborghini doesn't pay you any rent. So I want you to think about every property as a Lamborghini. How many Lamborghinis do you have? And treat them special and merchandise them, polish them, right? And, a 6% more is 6% more from just some very basic, curb appeal improvements. Okay, now this is really the fun part now. Most people think of property management as being, hey, I got 6 or 7 or 8% of rents, done and dusted. That's my business model. That is not your business model. That is the beginning of your business model. And Gemma, all of this is being recorded, as you know, so I'll download it to my computer after this is over, upload it to YouTube. So if anything that I'm saying that you're not sure about, you can come back and review it. Not that you'd ever want to see this whole thing again, but you could at least, come back and look at a few things. This is one slide that you might come back to. So in addition to charging your clients, and by the way, I think you should charge yourself this stuff. So
yeah,
you should
to start with my own properties.
Absolutely. You should have a property management division, give it a good name, give it a great tagline. My trade name is Prof Bruce for my coaching, making impossible possible is my tagline. So you give it a good name, a great website. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to be pretty, and treat your own properties the same way. And then what you do is you charge your clients a half-month rent per year of lease term for each lease you do for them. And I strongly, strongly recommend that landlords, real estate investors, property managers should go to 2-year leases. For one of my clients who has 600 doors, when I told him this, he went, well, duh, but he wasn't doing that. So if you think about it, he was doing 600 leases every year. That's a hell of a lot of work. Excuse my language, but that's a heck of a lot of work. And I said, forget it. Do 2-year leases. You've reduced your workload by half. And he said, well, I won't be able to get the increase in the second year if I do 2-year leases. I said, why is that? So, well, I said, sure you can. Do that training tutorial that I did with Tristan Peltier on proper residential leasing. You can put whatever, I put in the leases, whatever the appropriate increase in rent is according to the Ontario government, or if you're in Arizona or California or New York State or British Columbia, you're going to get it. So you can absolutely do that. But from your point of view as property managers, if you rent something for $1,500 a month for 2 years, you should get $750, half a month's rent for the first year and a half a month's rent for the second year. That means you get $1,500 up front. All right. You should add a 15% admin fee on all renovations. So if and you have to disclose all of this, of course, to your clients. So if you have to get a plumber to go in and fix something, and he or she, the plumber, charges $300, you are going to pay his bill, $300, but you're going to also charge the landlord 15% on top of that for your time and effort managing it. Most property managers don't do that. That's a big mistake. Because somebody's got to pay these bills, somebody's got to supervise, and you're responsible for it to make sure the work was done properly and that you weren't overcharged. So that's worth 15%. And if a landlord complains about it, you've got the wrong landlord client, right? Like I have property managers who work for me and they charge me 15%. I never quibble about that because they're really good at what they do. And that's $45 for bookkeeping, accounting, management, supervision, all of that. So 15% there. If you're going to get into this Airbnb stuff, and vacation rental by owner, you're not going to charge 6, 7, or 8% of rents. You're going to charge anywhere from 15 to as high as 25%. I coach a number of third-party hosts, and there's so much work with Airbnb that if you charge 6, 7, or 8%, you will be really sorry that you ever took on that client. It has to be a minimum of 15%. Wouldn't surprise me if it was 20 or 25. Those are the numbers. If you're going to put some of your own properties, some of your doors or your landlord's doors into the medium-term rental market, typically those are furnished rentals that are available for 3 or 6 months. Again, you're going to charge more than the 6, 7, or 8% of long-term rentals. You're going to charge 12 or even 15% of that because, again, it's a lot more work. And something else that I think is really important, and we do it all the time, my wife and I, we don't offer people, say, half a month's free rent or a month's free rent. We don't do that. We offer them some kind of premiums instead. So typically, my wife, for example, might offer like a free Costco card for a year. People love that stuff. My wife has been putting Presto cards into a lot of our apartments. These are cards that you can use to ride the bus. And she puts $10 on them. So she'll put 2 Presto cards in with $10 each on them. So you've got $20. You can give them to your kids or you can use them yourself. These are called premiums. And people value premiums tremendously. And I'll give you an example of that. It's commercial, not residential, but I'll give you an example of that. One of my clients has a co-working space downtown, really, really nice. It's not big, but it's nice. And for some reason or other, she was having trouble renting her offices. They're really nice, they're right downtown, et cetera. And she asked me for some help, some coaching. I said, okay. So I went down and looked at them and said, wow, these are really nice. What are you charging? She said, well, I'm charging, $1,000 a month, $800 a month, $1,500 a month, depending how big they are and what services go with them. I said, well, those are okay numbers. How come half of your offices are vacant? She said, I don't know. I said, what have you been doing? She said, well, I've been offering, a free month's rent. I even offered one guy, if he would take it for a year, I offered him 2 months free rent. I said, wow, that's really expensive. On a $1,500 a month office, that's $3,000. So what I said to her is, well, can we think of a premium? She said, I don't really know what that is. And then it turns out that she owns a beautiful pub 2 blocks away. She and her husband, well, actually she owns it. She owns a beautiful pub 2 blocks away. And it's got great music, great food, good atmosphere. It's, if I mentioned the name of it, you would certainly know it. It's well known. So I said, oh my gosh, you're going to offer a $25 gift certificate for free food at your pub every 4 months. So 3 times a year, $25. Over the next few months, every one of her offices leased up. How ridiculous is that? That people value a premium like that more than they do a month's free rent. A $1,500 free rent, and she was giving them $25 quarterly, 4 times a year, sorry. So it cost her $100 a year, and she filled up all her offices, and people went, oh, this is so cool, I get to have her free lunch. Right? So I want you guys to understand, and you guys should be thinking of a premium. You probably know, Gemma,
we did Instacart, actually. Gemma inspired me to do Instacart for 2 of my COVID tenants.
Perfect. Exactly. Gemma, I have these wristbands. I don't know. Randy, do you have one?
Randy has one.
Randy has one, but I haven't had a chance to give you one because I don't see anybody. So I still have a whole bunch of them here, and I can't get rid of them.
I know Alex would love one.
Yeah. Oh, no, he's too young. But it has 4 words on it. Verify. You shouldn't have anybody in your life that you don't like and don't trust. It says believe. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. It says if you want to change your life, you have to act. You can't just sit around. And the last word on it is once you find a business model that you're happy with, to everything else you have to say no. And these are actually branded inside. They're called the @Prof Bruce Power Circle. But my daughters call them Brucelets. All right? And I swear to God, Gemma, that when I give people this, they're like incredibly thankful. You know, they go, oh, you're so kind. You know, it's about a $4 item. I'm happy to give it to people. And I really believe in those 4 words. So it's very authentic, but people really, really appreciate it. And by the way, just so you know, one of these has been to the South Pole.
Sorry, I'm just.
You're on mute.
Yeah. So Gemma, one of these has been to the South Pole. One of my clients went to the South Pole and he was at the pole and he took off his glove and he took a picture pointing at it like this. I have it somewhere on my computer. So so people really like this. And some of my clients have been on airplanes and they see other people wearing them. They go, yeah, right on. So it's like a brotherhood and sisterhood that I've created. So it doesn't have to be an expensive item, but you should have something that's branded with your company name, your email address, your telephone number, your tagline, some of the concepts that you believe in, and use that like confetti, right? It's the way to go. All right, so let's keep going. Property management revenue streams. You should be offering, in my opinion, tech packages for all of your apartments. And I'm so pleased that we've been doing this for 6 or 7 years, because during COVID-19, when so many people had to start working from home, the fact that they had really, really good infrastructure made a big difference. No zones that Wi-Fi couldn't penetrate, good quality internet, good download speeds, reasonable upload speeds, and you should be able to make some money on it too. Now, the next one is really interesting.
Bruce, I've been working with Terry Stewart. Terry
Stewart, correct.
Yeah, Terry Stewart. So we're becoming friends over real estate, and he's working with Rogers, who delivers the tech packages.
Yeah, and he works with another young man that I coach. His name is Abe DeHavey, and they run a company called, Terry and Abe run a company called Ad Smart Tech.
Yeah, right? They were on your ROI a couple of weeks back, and I talked to Terry the day before because he was supposed to present. But and
Terry Stewart is the nicest man you're ever going to meet, and Abe DeHavey is the guy who's the techie of the two. You know, Terry's the salesman, and Abe is the guy who has to actually do the work.
Cool.
But they keep all of our technology running in all of our buildings, both commercial and residential. And we could not, we have 352 tech packages out there. There's no way we could do it without help from Abe and Terry. There's no way. I don't want somebody calling me drunk Saturday night saying, hey, I can't connect to Netflix. Those calls go to Abe, right? And of course he has team viewers, so he can pretty much do almost everything from home.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing is interesting, that you guys, because I'm teaching Randy and now Gemma, you guys can actually provide coaching to your landlord clients. So you can charge for that. In addition to everything else that you do, as you get to win the trust of your clients, you know, they're going to come to you. You should be thinking of property management and portfolio management as if you were their real financial advisors. Most of the financial planning industry is horse manure. It's absolutely terrible. It's self-serving crap that they're selling. And you guys are going to teach clients how to expand their portfolios. And you're going to charge for that. You're going to teach them. And then if one of the two of you got her or his real estate license, guess what? So I've been helping a number of my property management clients in Canada, the United States. They've been getting their realtor license, at least one person gets their realtor license, and guess what happens? And it's been happening over and over again. That's how one client went from 300 doors to 600. A lot of that was organic growth, which meant it was growth from the existing client base. Because once you start to get better ROI, you get your costs under control, you get your revenues going up, your clients will say to you, you know, gee, I think I could refinance my properties now, pull out some money tax-free. Could you help me buy more properties? And could you help me buy the right kind of properties? Don't buy any more condos, Gemma. And so if you have your real estate license, guess what? You can get a buyer commission. And that's a lot of money. When one of my clients went from $300 to $600, and probably half of that was organic growth, they helped 150 doors. So you imagine what the commissions are on that. That's pretty good, Randy.
Yep.
All right. So that's what they did. There's another thing, Randy, I don't know if I've ever shown you any of my PAN reports, my property animation and analysis reports.
Yeah, early on we talked about that stuff. So.
Yeah, and I think you should offer PAN reports to your clients when your portfolio gets a little bit bigger, where you actually will charge them. You know, I charge up to $1,500 for those PAN reports, and clients are happy to pay it because I can often go out and look at a property, make some suggestions, and if I could change the cap rate from 4.5% or 5% to 6.5% or 7%, that makes a huge difference. Paying $1,500, again, it's negative cost selling. You can also, if you have your realtor license, you can provide a charge for CMAs. CMA stands for comparative market analysis. Realtors are allowed to do CMAs. They're not allowed to do appraisals. We're not appraisers. But I think most realtors can produce very fine comparative market analyses. And sometimes they're better than appraisals because appraisers tend to look in the rearview mirror, whereas realtors tend to live right in the immediate presence. So appraisals generally tend to come in, I think, 5% below fair market value, and that can make a big difference. On $1 million property, that's $50,000 difference. And what we do before we get an appraisal for ourselves or for any of our clients is we do our own CMAs and we provide those to the appraiser. So we provide the appraiser with very good professional pictures. We provide them with a full list of any renovations, including all the stuff behind the walls that they can't see. And we do CMAs based on comparables, cost to complete less depreciation, and on an income basis using cap rate. So we use 3 different approaches. So if you think the property is worth $1 million, maybe it's a 4-plex, and you think it's worth $1 million, and the appraiser is going to come in at 900,000 or 800,000 or 950. That is a big difference in terms of refinancing. Because, you know, if you're going to refinance 80%, if the appraiser is $50,000 below what is a fair market value, in my opinion, that's a $40,000 funding gap. If he or she is $200,000 below, that's a $160,000 miss. So, and you should charge for those CMAs if you have a license. You know, other kinds of things that you can do, which are obvious. You can, you know, if a client is not charging for parking, maybe they could charge for parking. If they don't have tech packages, they could put tech packages. You can put a workshop in the backyard. You can rent those out. Everybody's got a gig.
Bruce?
Yeah.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. I'm going to turn off my video. I have to go get the baby. I'm still listening with my earbuds.
Okay.
And then if I disconnect, it's not offense. I just
I completely understand. You've got another priority there.
Okay. I'm going to mute and stop the video.
All right. Thank you, Gemma. So anyway, so there's some things that you can do. As you know, Randy, you and I have talked about it ad infinitum. These micro suites, we're going to see them everywhere. And of course, the subletting and the augmented tenancies, again, I'm teaching people now, it will spread all across North America. I probably think that'll go around the world. The other thing that is a little bit more controversial is adding percentage rents for home-based businesses. So let's say you had a workshop in the backyard and somebody was a yoga instructor and she was running yoga classes there. I'd probably be inclined to charge her a base rent and then some additional rent for maybe utilities, contribution towards property taxes, and any other operating costs you may have. But in addition to that, I might be inclined to say, you know, I want a percentage rent. It's a commercial concept, but I've been using it in residential as well. Because, you know, one lady, she was a yoga instructor. I was coaching her actually. And she was, I think I told you this story, Randy, she was making $25 or $30 an hour, which is okay as a yoga instructor. But when she rented literally a backyard workshop, which is quite a big one, she was able to do her own classes. And so she would have 10 or 12 ladies, mostly ladies, some men too, but mostly ladies, 10 or 12 yoga practitioners come and pay $20 or $15 for the session. So all of a sudden she was making $200 an hour instead of $30 an hour. That's a big change. But one of the things that I put in for the landlord was a 4% percentage rent. So if she made $200, he got an extra $8. Doesn't sound like much, but she would do, you know, 4 classes a day, you know, 5 days a week or 6 days a week. It adds up. So
well, and it's more wear and tear. The more people, I have the same issue with the cottage, more people
exactly
going to rent. I want additional revenue if it's more than 6 people is what I say, because it's additional wear and tear.
There you go. I like that. And then every bill that you pay for a landlord, every bill, if you're paying a hydro bill for a landlord, a gas bill for a landlord, doesn't matter what it is, add another 15% for you. Because again, you are, you know, there's some bookkeeper somewhere having to do all this work and keep track of it all. It costs you money.
Actually, I had a question while I'm generally in property management, do you sign the lease in the name of the landlord or the name of the property manager company? I've had both.
It depends.
I've always chosen to do it myself, but
it depends. Some of your clients will say, look, Randy, I want the lease to be in my name as the owner.
Yeah.
I want the money to go into my bank account, and I will make sure that you get your fees paid. And that's fine, as long as you know, you trust them. That's fine. But alternatively, many of the property managers will do the leases and will collect the money and put it in their bank account and pay the landlord. But it can go both ways. It's up to you, and you also have to negotiate that with every client.
yeah, okay.
Okay. For somebody like me, if I trust my property managers, and I do, I much prefer them collecting the money. My accounting system, I'm a sole practitioner, Randy. You know, my accounting system is just me remembering to, you know, put your credit card into Square so I can charge you $1 million for coaching. You know, it's really not much of a system. So property managers, you know, they have really good, at least the ones I deal with, have really good systems, and they handle the money. I get paid every month, and I'm good with that. You know, I want to reduce the complexity of my business to taking a check to the bank once a month. And in the case of the people I work with, they just put the money in my bank account, right? Direct deposit. So, you know, it simplifies things for me, but I'm not necessarily the typical client. So you'll have to make that determination as you grow. And the other thing that's interesting is you should set up your property management and portfolio management company, as I said, as a coach, as an advisor, as a lifetime advisor to your clients. And if you help them with financings and refinancings, if you have your real estate license, you're allowed to get referral fees from the mortgage brokers.
Okay.
All right, but you do need a license to do that. All right, so where is the best place to find new clients? It's often your existing clients. And it really pays to talk to, you know, if I didn't have enough to do with my coaching practice, I would email every one of my existing clients. How are you doing? Is there anything I can help with? And almost inevitably, if I contacted 10 of my old clients, at least 1 or 2 of them, maybe sometimes 3 or 4 of them would say, hey, Bruce, there actually is something you can help me with. So it's really important to get that CRM organized, the customer relationship management system, even if it's, like I said, just a spreadsheet. And what I would recommend that you do when you're ready to expand your business and really get it going is do a series of free webinars. It is still one of the best ways to populate, you know, your customer base. Everyone in your organization, do you have any other employees other than you and Gemma?
Working on, well, my friend Rob wants to join up as the handyman kind of guy.
Yeah. So everybody in your organization, in my opinion, is in sales. Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone, your contractors, your bookkeeper, everybody is in sales, Randy. What that means is that I really believe in distributing information as widely as you can within your company. So if you're starting a new project, your plumber, your electrician, your renovator, your contractor, your property manager, your handyman, obviously Gemma and yourself, know every detail about it, right? And that's because another place to look for clients it is in your payables. People who you pay, should pay you. In other words, people you buy from should also buy from you. So, I'll bet you every plumber you've ever called has some rental properties, right? And so it doesn't hurt to say, hey, listen, I'm in the property management business. You do lots of work for me. Do you have any properties that you own? Or do any of your friends have any properties that they own that they might need some help with? Now that you mention it, there are quite a few. So you have to ask, right? And that's part of the CRM deal, okay? All right, let me just see if I can go past this. So this is just a thing I put in here in terms of having an effective customer relationship management system. And what a CRM does is, people are always amazed when they call me up after, or email me or text me after maybe a few years I haven't heard from them, how much I remember. For example, I have somewhere on my files now that you and Gemma have a little boy by the name of Alex. And so if we were having a Zoom call, I would look at those files and I would say, how old is Alex now? And, maybe it's 5 years from now. You go, whoa, you remembered that? I didn't really, but my CRM did. Makes a big difference, right? So what I want you and Gemma to be is I want you to become the gods, the kings and queens of information. So one way to make
real gap. This one's a real gap for me already. So
I know you've told me that before, but I'm going to just reinforce it for you.
Yeah.
So every single piece of paper I get, I digitize. Every single piece of paper. It's incredible, and I give it really, really good names so I can find it on my computer.
Yeah.
And so if you want to have clients that worship you, that say Randy and Gemma are the one, or at least one of the ones. They are the gods of Britannia Village and property management and investment property. Become extremely, extremely expert in digital information. So you digitize everything for, so your client says, oh, Randy, here's a survey of the property. You said, well, what does a property manager need a survey for? If I had a paper copy of that, I would digitize it. I would put it in Randy Irwin's file, survey of 1234 Britannia Street, at Britannia Road, right? And someday, maybe you sell that property or you refinance that property, and somebody says, Jesus, we need a survey. We're supposed to do this refinancing on Friday, and the lenders today are asking for, it used to be they asked for this much information on a property. Today it's, pages of, and so people will call me up, lawyers will call me up, clients will call me up, and they say, hey, Bruce, you wouldn't happen to have a copy of the survey, would you? Oh, now that you mention it, I do. I handle as a realtor, not this year, Randy, because my real estate sales are going like this, but in a normal year, I would handle between 50 and 70 real estate transactions of various scale and size. It's about one a week. And I have everything digitized. I'll have leases digitized. I will have the survey. I will have the house plans or the building plans. I will have the phase 1 reports. I will have all that information. And the lawyers I work with and the clients I work with are always calling me and saying, geez, we can't find blah, blah, blah. And here I am, I'm just a coach and I have it all.
Yeah, so, mortgage brokers are always the same. I had that with the mortgage brokers, like, oh, we need this lease that's signed.
So I have a mortgage broker, and I have a lawyer. You use the lawyer, Steve Shepard, and I've introduced you to Sean McCormick.
Yeah.
And I've had these discussions, and I said, Sean, Steve, do you want to work with me over the next 20 years? This is a long time ago now. Oh, yeah. So I said to Steve, you can't be late closing transactions, and you can't lose documents. I had the same discussion with Sean. So Sean has really improved, and so has Steve. And I taught them how to do proper electronic file management, which is more complicated than you might think.
Yep.
And so when I ship off, things like identification for clients, these days you have to have FinTrack, financial tracking. You have to have somebody's passport or driver's license. I have that digital. So I will send, Steve Shepard as a lawyer, as an attorney. I'll send him copies of the agreement of purchase and sale. I'll send copies of any amendments. I'll send him copies of any building inspections, waivers and fulfillments of conditions, on and on and on and on, all the ID that he requires. Now, every once in a while, one of Steve's, assistants will call me and say, well, we didn't get blah, blah, blah. Then I get pissed off. I do. So now they don't call me anymore because I'm very careful about that. I'm not perfect, but I'm very careful. I make mistakes, but not very many. And I never make the same mistake twice. And the last closing that we did was this young woman who works for Steve had lost a number of the files that I had sent. So I did have to resend them. But I had a discussion with Steve and I said, Steve, this is not going to happen again. I said, this just isn't going to happen again because I'm a busy person and I don't mind working hard. I don't. I work hard. I like working. But what I don't like is doing things a second time.
Doing things over and over.
I have no patience for that. And I do fire people, not very many, but I fire some people because they don't learn. That I have no tolerance for. You make the same mistake over and over again in my world, you will not be working with me or anybody I work with. You will not. Because we're all busy and we want to try and become the one. You do not become the one by being careless and stupid. So I bit that young woman's ear off. I did. I gave her what for. I mean, I wasn't yelling and screaming, but I said, this is unacceptable. I do not accept this. And she said, well, I can't find it. I said, no. You have it. You just can't find it. All right, I'm going to send it to you, but I am going to, I told her right straight, I'll have this discussion with Steve Shepard. If this happens again, it will be the last time I will work with you. It will not happen again. Are we understanding each other? Oh, yes. Okay. All right. So I will resend you the documents, but this is the only time I will do that. Next time that I will terminate that relationship with you, not with Steve, because I'm very fond of Steve, but I suspect Steve would terminate that relationship. So I think it's really, really, really important for you to get really good at that. And if you're not going to get good at that, like my wife is terrible at that, but she has me. So it doesn't have to be you, Randy, but it has to be you or Gemma.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping Gemma is. The funny part, Bruce, is that in my IT career, it's document and records management is the software that I implement for other customers. That's exactly the software I do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that.
But yeah, I don't use it.
All right. So we're getting through it. I'm just going to try and.
Hey, there he is.
Oh, there he is. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Who's the other guy on this thing? Is that Papa? Is that Dad? Wave hi, Randy.
Good to be.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Smiles.
Yeah.
It's Daddy. You can't hear you because I'm wearing earbuds.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep my earbuds on, and I will switch between turning my video on and off just so I'm not distracting, but I'll keep listening.
You're not distracting us. Leave the video on. It's nice to see. I love kids, as you know. I love babies.
Well, he's going to probably run around soon anyways.
Let him run around.
So.
All right. So, Randy and Gemma, the way to make yourself more successful as property managers is by making your clients more successful. If you make your clients more successful, they're going to love you. If you become the gods of information so that you have the survey and the leases and the building inspection reports and all the rest of that at your fingertips digitally, you will embed yourself in their ecosystem and they're never going to fire you. That's how you acquire customers for life. Are we clear on that, Randy?
Yep.
Crystal, okay. Now, I did a little bit of coaching with Shopify a bunch of years ago, and I told them this. The way to make yourself more successful is by making your clients more successful. And to this day, one of the DVs, the differentiated values that Shopify has really now got in their DNA, was introduced to them by me. And so let's say, Randy, you and Gemma had a store on Shopify. So Gemma, maybe you could mute yourself because we are recording.
Yeah, I'm going to mute right now.
So let's say you and Gemma, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
The Shopify is ingrained in their DNA to
Oh yeah. So let's say
make clients more successful.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So let's say you had a Shopify store, I don't know, selling, knitted baby caps. Actually, I have a client who does knitted baby caps. So, really, really cute little baby caps, and they'll have Spider-Man or Superman or Supergirl or something like that on them. And she's got quite a successful Shopify store. She sells a lot of these things. And they're not cheap either. And they're really cute. So let's say you and Gemma had a Shopify store, and you got a call from somebody at Shopify. They would not be calling you to see what more Shopify stuff, services that they could sell you. They would not be talking to you about that. They would call you up and they say, Mr. Irwin, Gemma, how can we help you sell more of your baby caps to your customers? That is a completely different approach. And then maybe Gemma or Randy would say, well, we don't really have a good way of managing cash. Aha, Shopify has, a really great shopping cart that you could add to your website. What do you mean Shopify? Yeah, we have a really great point of sale product. Oh, that's awesome, because right now what I'm doing is I'm sending out PayPal invoices, and it takes forever for me to send out those PayPal invoices, and then it takes forever for me to get paid. And then I don't know if you know this, guys, but if you transfer money from your PayPal account to your bank account, it takes like 5 to 7 business days. I mean, you guys could starve on PayPal. So Shopify would say, oh, we can. So what they do is they focus not on selling more Shopify services and stuff to their clients. They focus on helping their clients sell more stuff to their clients. And as a result, they buy more Shopify stuff. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So what, in real estate, what does that mean? Okay. So let's show this. So this is I actually put this in here for you, Gemma. And it's animate your properties, right? So Randy's already seen this, but I'll go through it quickly, Randy. So a coaching client of mine asked me, Bruce, what would you do with $100,000 today in the time of COVID-19? So what I said to him or her, and this went out to all of my clients because it was right at the beginning of the COVID thing when the wheels were falling off the world. I mean, they still are, but it's less traumatic now than it was 3 months ago. So I said, let's think about that. Let's first increase the mortgage on one of your properties by $100,000. Don't use a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. Why not? They asked me. Because your bank can always rescind that, right? There's so many weasel words and all these things. So you actually increase your mortgage by $100,000. You take that in cash. And then I said, what I'd like you to do is take $10,000 of that, put it under your bed in a shoebox, just in case. This is 3 months ago, we have a run on the banks. We haven't had a run on the banks in Canada in 100 years, but we've had them in the past. And certainly in America, they've had them, and also in Australia. So just put $10,000, in case the world goes to hell in a handbasket, put $10,000 under your bed. Then I said, put another $25,000 of that cash in a bank with which you have no other relation. So if you're a TD Bank customer, put it in the CIBC. You don't have a mortgage there, you don't have a loan there, nothing. Because if you have mortgages with TD Bank and there's a $25,000 amount in a savings account there, and for some reason you get into dispute with the bank, trust me on that, TD Bank and all these banks, they'll steal that money. They'll just take it. They'll say, well, you owed it to us, we just took it. They'll scoop it. So put $25,000 in one bank that you have no relationships with, and put $25,000 in another bank account. So now you've got $10,000 under your bed, $25,000 in 2 bank accounts. What do you do with the remaining $40,000? And this is where it's now relevant to you guys. say you had 30 or 40 properties that other people owned in Britannia Village under management. And there was a 300 square foot room somewhere that had its own ingress and egress to the outside. You could convert that for $40,000 or less to a micro suite. Micro suite might look like this. So you come in here, it's got the bed. You guys have seen this before, the bathroom, the micro kitchen, the entertainment and work area, and some access to the outside. And you've seen this too, Randy. This is Ken and Natalie McKenzie's house in Rockland. And when I went to visit there, Randy, you know the story, I found out that they had a second living room. So here's a porch, and behind this glass wall is this room that you're seeing here. So there's the door to the outside. Here's half of the living room. Here's the other half. And by putting an 8-foot section of drywall here, they had a perfect 300 square foot micro suite. The only thing they needed to do was add another bathroom and a micro kitchen. They were in business. Here's the door to the patio. There's the patio. When you look at the numbers, if this micro suite costs $40,000, it's a small town of Rockland, it means that they will get a cap rate, a return on investment of around 23.5%. 23.5% cap rate is unbelievable, right? And it adds almost $10,000 a year to Natalie and Ken's income. Again, that doesn't sound like very much, but if you had 17 properties where you could add a micro suite and everybody got an extra $9,000 or $10,000, you are going to be considered like the best property manager, portfolio manager, financial advisor ever. So that's the case. In Ken's case, because he did so much of the work by himself, it's embarrassing to report that the cost of the micro suite was actually 16 grand. And so his cap rate is like a stupid, like 40 or 50%. I didn't put that in here because it's so high, it's unbelievable. But, you know, for a professionally managed micro suite, I built a few of them myself. Not myself, but for some of our properties. And we're getting cap rates of between 20 and 24%. And if you have any handyman skills, or if you hire a handyman and Rob's any good, you know, you could probably produce at least 23% return for your clients. That is going to make you the hero property manager, right? We all agree on that? So yep. I really want you to be thinking of your clients' success rather than your own. You make your clients more successful, you trust me on that, you will absolutely make yourself more successful. And one of the things that I do a lot of is I do voiceover videos. I can sit at my computer with just a few pictures and I can do, you know, voiceover videos like crazy. I've got a great voice for video, not such a great face for video because I'm old, but you know, just the voiceover videos, you don't even have to see me, just hear me. And I can do case study after case study after case study as a video tutorial. And then I send that to clients, right? Like, I mean, if you gave me permission, I could share this publicly. I'm not going to do that. But if I did, instead of getting, you know, 10 views of it, you and me and you and me and you and me, you know, I'd get 500 views. Well, 500 views doesn't sound like very much if you're Katy Perry with a few billion views, but 500 of the right people for you guys is tremendous. Yeah. Right? So you can certainly do this. If I, you know, I'm 68. If I can do this, Randy, you have the technical skills, and Jem, I'm sure you know how to do this too. I won't go through this because you've already seen this, Randy, but these micro suites, Gemma, can be as small as 140 square feet. The University of British Columbia has one here that is 140 square feet. So most of the ones I've been doing are anywhere from 225 square feet to 450 square feet. But they can be very small. This one is 140 square feet. And here's the rest of the room, Gemma. It's got a bed here that turns into a desk that turns into a bed. It's got a decent sized bathroom, and here's the floor plan. So you come in here, there's the bathroom, there's the bed that turns into a desk, and the desk that turns into a bed. It's got the little kitchenette. People love these things. And in the time of COVID-19, you'd much rather have a micro suite than a roommate. Your roommate can make you sick. And of course, roommates always argue, right, Randy?
Anybody have any issues with zoning compliance and egresses and all that kind of stuff with micro suites? Or
Yes.
you
Yeah.
gotta consider that obviously going into it.
So going back to Ken's situation, I think I mentioned this to you, but I might not have, Randy. So when he put drywall here, he did proper fire. He built it to the Ontario Building Code, but I have to tell you that this had a door in it, right? So it's a door, just like a bedroom door, but I mean, it was actually a fully insulated door, but
Yeah,
but it,
solid core fiber.
a
Yeah.
solid core door, and it was properly done to the Ontario Building Code. And it had, you know, just typical bedroom handset on it. So you're allowed to put a wet bar and a bathroom in your house. I mean, you can put wet bars and, you know, bathrooms and rooms that you want to have wet bars and bathrooms in. You can do that. It's perfectly legal. What's not necessarily fully compliant with the bylaws, it is compliant with the building code, but not necessarily with the bylaws, is to have that as a separate unit, because Ken and Natalie have in their basement, at the lower level, they do have a 1-bedroom suite down there. So they have a 1-bedroom suite at the bottom. They have a beautiful house, and they have a micro suite. Now, the micro suite is perfectly fine for, say, for example, a returning child. You know, sometimes adult children tend to come back. My youngest son broke up with his girlfriend. He's living in our basement. They do tend to come back. So it would be perfectly acceptable to have a micro suite. It's just, you know, you gives your son or your adult son or adult daughter, you know, some privacy, obviously, and some ingress and egress from the outside. But the other thing that clients do, I can't coach them to do that, but after the bylaw inspector, the plans inspector, you know, everybody kind of disappears. You get the occupancy permit. That door lock set might actually be double locked, right? You might replace that with a double lock so it can be locked on both sides. You understand, Randy?
Yep. So yeah, you still need a second egress if there were a fire or anything, though.
Yeah, well, we have one of those. We actually build a micro suite, and we do follow the building code. But with the bylaws, I'm talking about myself personally. I can't coach this. We do follow the Ontario Building Code very carefully. But when it comes to the bylaws, maybe not so much. So on one of the ones where we have a second egress, we do have panic hardware. So that what that means is that you can have a second means of egress. It wasn't necessary in this because this was the space that was small enough that it was below the minimum required. So this is now double locked because there is a tenant there. But on one of the ones that we did, which was a little bit bigger, we did require a second means of egress. So we put panic hardware. So it means that in a case of a fire, you can go through it, but a hooter sounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit tricky, I'm afraid. All right, so I'll just, oh, yeah, here's the one that we built that where we did have to put the oh, shoot, sorry, Randy. Sorry, I screwed up. I went back to here. We don't want to go through all those slides again. Yeah, so I wanted to show you this one too. Yeah, this is one of the properties that we own. This is 1268 Henry Farm Drive, and this is what it looked like when we purchased it. This is what it looks like today. And Randy, I think you've seen this. This is
we went through these ones.
Yeah, this is the insulated garage door, and we have a micro suite in there. So this is its own little suite. We have a 1-bedroom suite on the side, and then we have a 3-bedroom home here. It's very successful. It was a home-based office, right? We do have a second driveway here, but you know, the bio officer wasn't too impressed with that, but I told him I'm never taking it out, and I guess I frightened him away. He never came back, thank goodness. And then Don built the hideaway. So we've seen this before. So this is the inside of the garage here, the insulated garage door. We've got the gas heater here, got a little living room, full kitchen in here. We've got a lunch counter, go around the corner, you've got a nice bedroom. And it's up here, Randy, where you go up these stairs, where we did need a second means of egress because it is big enough that it does require that. And that's where the panic hardware is.
Right.
And it's got a full stack washer and dryer. It's got its own bathroom. It's got its own tech package as well. The other thing that we do a lot of, Randy, as you know, is I really mean this. I mean, this is really important. And this will help you improve the overall property values in Britannia Village and will help you make your properties and those for third parties that you manage more successful. Families that play together stay together, right? You've heard that.
Yeah, we're kind of running lower on time, and I know we've been through a lot of this stuff, the animation stuff. I'm fully
Okay.
on board. I know Gemma's on board.
Good.
I just wonder if we can kind of switch gears and go back to the property management.
Absolutely. Let's
dig
do it.
in more of the nuts and bolts of how the company can work.
100%.
More specific, more than this general, because I'm totally on board and I love all the animation stuff, and yeah,
Okay.
it's more of the specifics of the company, how to, set up, how to bill myself, bill other people.
Okay. So let's do it. What are the questions?
Well, so first of all, we're talking about it. We need to develop our website, our branding, our CRM. Get our electronic document management in order. But then, sort of the typical life cycle, I guess, of what. Because you think, as you said in the beginning, property managers, it's just everybody says, "Oh, I can do that. Just it's easy, right? You do a lease, you do maintenance." But it's more the nuts and bolts of how the company will work, in terms of what are all the things that a property management you did some of the services there, and what we can value add, things we can charge for, but more of, I guess, the day-to-day basis.
So
what are the things that we're going to be doing, and in our specific case, how? Because I'm trying to think of it as a landlord and a customer for myself. How much of my own stuff can I bill to myself, and how do I do that? I guess it's not a very
So most of my property management clients, I think all of them, have their own investment properties. And so one of the questions that you will get asked, and Gemma too, is, well, you have properties in Britannia Village. How do I know that you're not going to take the best tenants for your properties, right?
Yeah.
You are going to get that question. And the answer to that question is that the stuff that you have learned, both good and bad, and the mistakes that you have made are probably the most important piece of the offering that you can give people. In other words, your portfolio is where you experiment.
Yeah.
So if augmented tenancies don't work for you, they probably won't work for your clients. But they would rather you fail with your property than you fail with their property and their money. So one of the ways you can turn it around is you can say, look, there is overwhelming demand for good quality rental properties that are safe. That's number one. Number two, we do not favor our properties over others. In fact, we do the opposite. If we want to experiment with something that is new, we experiment with ours to see if it will work. If it doesn't, we eat the loss. If it does, we make some money, and then we propagate that idea to others. And this has been a very effective answer. It's the difference between walking the walk and talking the talk. When you have your own properties where you've made some mistakes, and you've learned some things, that's called walking the walk. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have a coach who has never owned property, has never built anything, has never developed anything, or somebody who has vast experience, who's built commercial and residential and institutional, and has experimented with pretty much every real estate business model that I can imagine, or certainly more than anybody else probably on the planet? That would be me. So, if somebody says, well, Bruce, in theory, you could learn something from me and you could use it with other people, I say, exactly, good, right? So what you're doing is you're creating a learning organization and you're at the center of it.
Yeah. I need to set up the company with my own properties in mind, and then, that's
you're going to treat yourself as a client, and you're going to run through all these systems. And one of the most important things for you to do is to, if you want to write down a few questions, I'm going to dictate them to you. Okay.
Sure.
So if I were putting a property management company together, I would have on my website, we talked about case studies and YouTube voiceover videos and all that. I would certainly have all of that, but I would have a few very simple questions. Number one, are you happy with your current property management arrangements? 90% of the people that I talk to who are landlords would say, hell no. So number one, are you happy with the property management arrangements you currently have? Number two, would you like to know how to improve your return on investment by animating your properties slash adding new revenue streams? Yes or no? Most people would say, geez, I can, yeah. Would you like to know the secrets of boosting cap rates? Next, I would say, would you like to know how to keep costs under control? You ready for the next one?
Yep.
Would you like to have better tenants paying higher rents and staying longer, reducing your churn rate and your make-ready costs?
Yeah.
Most people would say, yeah. And the next question, would you like to have better tenants? You ready? Would you like to have better tenants paying higher rents who are also happier? Would you like to know what an augmented tenancy is and how this will not only benefit you, the landlord, but also your tenants?
My good friend Jeff had the perfect apartment. He couldn't get a 3-bedroom rented, and I told him about the augmented tenancy. He didn't go there, but it was the ideal spot.
Yep.
I almost had him convinced, but
Yep.
he ended up renting it as a 3-bedroom with this big
All right.
huge extra room on the front.
I get that, but when you're the property manager, you'll have more control.
Yeah.
Next, would you like to know a surefire way of reducing vacancies by offering prospective tenants inexpensive premiums?
Yeah.
And so if you, I have found, I've done an awful lot of this. I have found the best way to get clients is to use the Socratic method. Do you know what that is?
I think so.
You know who Socrates was, eh?
Oh, yeah.
I think he had a bad ending. He had to drink poison or something like that and commit suicide. But before he committed suicide, Socrates, he would teach his students by asking questions. And I learned how to use the Socratic method from my wife, Dawn, who's very good at this. And so rather than say, hey, I'm a great property manager, I can show you how to get better tenants paying higher rents, you ask that same question. So what Socrates found is that by asking his students questions, he could elicit a discussion and he could teach them, and they would internalize it better if they were answering questions than if he was just lecturing.
Yeah. Where are your pain points and how can we?
Exactly. So I think that, you and I, if we spend another 10 minutes on it, could come up with another 10 questions at least. But that is the most powerful method. If you go on my personal website, Randy, it'll say things like, are you happy with your current financial planner? Everybody goes, no. Do you love your mutual funds? I hate them. How are your stocks doing? They're horrible. What would you like?
I remember your list of questions just to even sign on as a coaching client.
Exactly. So
are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to put the work in?
Exactly. And so it's the Socratic method. I've been using it, for a long time now, but I actually learned it from my wife, Dawn, who's a very smart person. She's very quiet, but she's really smart.
Okay, any more advice on, as I said, on the nuts and bolts of, in our specific situation,
So the best
managing my own properties, so putting the lease
managing your own properties, you will figure out. The best thing for you to do, in my opinion, is to sign up 3 third-party clients. I don't care if they have 1 or 2 doors or they have 5 or 6. So the reason I picked the number 3, Randy, is that you can pretty much find one customer for anything. there's always some fool out there who will buy something from you. And
I
there might
already
be,
have my buddy Marcel. We're buying a sixplex, and I'm going to be the manager. So
of course,
I need the
yeah.
system to be able to manage his.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes you can find 2 fools, but not 3. 3 is a magic number. When you have 3 third-party clients that are truly arm's length, you know you have a real business. When I started coaching, you know, I could have coached, I don't know, my kids. I did coach my kids for them, you know, but that's not really a test of whether my coaching practice would have any legs, whether people would see any value in it. But, you know, I set a goal in my first month to try and get 3, 4, or 5 clients. I mean, as soon as I did that, advertising the, you know, Canada North Business Association, you know, I had like 50 requests for coaching. But you need to get to 3 customers. And the best way to learn a business is not to talk about it, although we're talking about it. The best way is to actually do it.
Yeah, sure.
And so if somebody came to you and they had 600 doors and they wanted you to take it over, I would say no to that. You're not ready for that. It would be much too difficult. But if somebody had, you know, a house with a basement apartment and you and Gemma, trust me on that, you could absolutely manage that. So I would think that you should look for 3 clients with, maybe they have 2 doors, maybe they have 4 doors, maybe they have 6 doors. And you will manage those clients. And then after 6 months, you will know a lot. All right. But that would be the goal for you. And I think, you know, I do these corny goal setting things. And I'm gonna write this down. I think you and Gemma should do this. You should write down on a piece of paper n equals 3. By the end of September, you will have 3 third-party clients that you will be managing their properties for. And you should just tape this up somewhere you can see it every day, because human beings are really good at internalizing things. And I think that would be a reasonable goal between now and the end of September. So you've got July, August, September. You've got 3 months to find 3 clients. You will find them because it's like, it would be like Brad Pitt, you know, asking a girl for a date. Most of them would probably say yes. You're Brad Pitt in this case. But you're not allowed to ask any girls for dates. I meant, you know, ask for property management contracts.
Be like carrying Alex to the grocery store. You can talk to any girl you want.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you know, but I do think, I mean, you and Gemma have to discuss it, but once you have 3 outside clients and you've spent 6 months working with them, trying to reduce their costs, improve their revenues, educate them, coach them, help them with their financing, refinancing, be think of yourself as a real financial advisor, as opposed to the BS that the financial planning industry is actually doing. I mean, it's just terrible. I think I told you when the Descendants went bankrupt and I had to restart my career at age 54, I went to the 3 top financial planners in Ottawa, so-called top, and they were all just, the advice they gave me was so bad. I thought, I got to reinvent this. This is just terrible.
Yeah. All right, cool. Babe, do you have any more questions? Are you able to?
Fighting with my earbuds. So he has one. I'm trying to get the other one. So I need, and this is the one that I control the sound.
So Gemma, it's like the old mono records that we used to have when I was a kid. There was no stereo back then.
Yeah. So I'm so before doing this, I watched the lease YouTube video that you sent me. So that was super helpful. And that gave me some ideas for when we renew my lease. But yeah, I think we're going to slowly start implementing all of these things.
Yeah, and I can tell you that between this video that we recorded today, which you'll have a copy of shortly, and the Tristan Peltier, Bruce Firestone residential leasing video, you already know, and plus Randy's you know, studied with me now for a few months, you already know, I'm not kidding, 10,000 times more than the average property manager.
Yeah. I think the CRM aspect is key, and just kind of is being organized. So I just gotta either find a nanny part-time or get this guy in daycare, and then I think we'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
That'll be, like Randy said, that's my department. That's where
I think it should be. You know, between my wife and I, she is our property manager. She does a fine job at that. But in terms of being the god of information, that would be me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's me in the relationship.
It could be, you know, male, female, doesn't matter. It just,
yeah.
One person has to do that. And my CRM is very effective for a sole practitioner. And my data management is right at the top of what is possible to do for a sole practitioner, right at the top. So if you have a really good CRM and you know, good quality control of digital information, and you implement the sound leasing principles that we've talked about through that other training, and then through this property management, you will have one of the best property management firms in the world. I mean, I know for a fact that for people who are at a later stage of development at 600 doors, they make serious money, like serious money. And like I said, it's not just so that they can have a nice car and a nice holiday, but they can invest in the best technology and the best people. It's people who make money, not assets. Like, you could have a great computer, but if you don't have a great computer operator, you just got a piece of metal.
I think I know the answer anyway, but I'll just throw it out there. The new Ontario lease has a new standardized lease now, but there is an area where you can do some of the additional information.
So, Gemma,
I have the answer. It's the extra terms that you add, and you add that, and you put it in the Ontario lease. You could put C, the terms and conditions, and you have that extra T's and C's document with all the detail. That was the entire video, basically. We went through it.
Exactly. So I can tell who has watched the training and who has not.
I watched it, but then when she watched it, I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember. We got to do that. Oh yeah, we got to do that."
So
this is why I'm the details person, though.
I get it. No. I mean, look, it's called yin and yang. We need yin and yang to make it work. But Gemma, what Randy doesn't know is in that YouTube video, there are actual Dropbox links where you can actually download not only the standard Ontario lease, which I filled out for you guys as an example, you can also download the extra terms and conditions, which has all of this in there. The only thing, Randy, that you're going to have to reach back to me for is when you are doing your first, second, third augmented tenancy. I have all of that on my computer. That you will need.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a little bit more complicated. You know, if I had gone through a few more slides, it's in there, but it doesn't matter. I have all of that. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you sent us all of the lease information. Like, we have it in Word. So
I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
So listen, Randy, I think this was great. And Gemma, I really appreciate it. I'm going to download this to my computer, upload it to YouTube. You'll see it a little bit later.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for bearing with Alex.
Oh, no, I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Bruce. Take care.
You too.